Good morning, everyone. Here in Cocoa Beach, Florida this morning. Beautiful sunrise about to happen. Glad you guys are all with us. I was thinking before we started today how incredible it is to be a Christian. After Jesus died, he was resurrected, he spent 40 days with his disciples. And he said, "My peace I give you, my peace I leave with you." And he breathed his spirit on his disciples. But then when he went to heaven, he sent the Holy Spirit in a powerful way, not just to breathe his spirit upon them, but the Spirit infused within them, immersed them in his power and love. And then the Holy Spirit, it was always surprising, like when Peter saw that the Holy Spirit had come to Cornelius, who was a Gentile. The moment of the moment one receives the Holy Spirit, their life radically changes. Jesus said, "I have to go to the Father so that I can send the Holy Spirit," so that the Father, he can send the Holy Spirit. So being a Christian really makes you different. If you've been baptized, you've received the Spirit of God. And if you're a Christian and you've received the Spirit of God, that makes you totally a different sort of creature. It fulfills what your purpose is. And throughout the Old Testament, the Holy Spirit would come and would rest upon the prophets, for example, when David would write his Psalms. But the Holy Spirit wasn't within them. And so to be a Christian is really a very phenomenal thing, and don't underestimate that. We're talking now about thou shalt have no other gods before me. The first commandment. We're going through the 10 Commandments now, and we're in paragraph 21:14. Human life finds its unity in the adoration of one God. And the commandment to worship the Lord alone integrates a man and saves him from an endless disintegration. So when we're not, it seems like the order of man there's three types of order. If you think of yourself as there's God, there's your soul, and then there's your body. For the man whose soulishness is in the uppermost, his pursuit of kind of prideful arrogance, intellectualism, pursuit of money, pursuit of glory, pursuit of wealth, pursuit of his own agenda, when his soul is kind of in charge, there's a disintegration. There's not a unification within him. Worse yet, when a man's body is in charge, when he's addicted to pleasures or to drugs or alcohol or things like that. And some people are addicted to too much exercise. They become almost narcissistic in that way. But when your body's in charge like that, then you can see the hierarchy is all messed up. The hierarchy should look like this: unity with the Lord, then your soul, then your body. That's the way the hierarchy should work. But if your soul, if you've unplugged from God and your soul is the boss, then you start to disintegrate. You don't really get to function as a fully alive, fully infused human being. Worse yet, if your body is in ascendancy over your soul and your body runs everything, then you're in real trouble. That's whether it's gluttony, whether it's lust, whether it's drugs or whatever. If your body is in the uppermost, then your life is really messed up. So we want to become integrated people, and you can only become an integrated person by being in communion with God. So idolatry is a perversion of man's innate religious sense. So man is born with this upward yearning that we've talked about: a desire for goodness, a desire for beauty, a desire for truth, a desire for justice, a desire for love, a desire for going home. And that going home feeling, I think, is the most direct desire we have for being with the Lord. So idolatry is just a perversion of that innate religious sense. So you see that innate religious sense everywhere in the world, among all cultures. You have to really work hard at being an atheist. In other words, it doesn't come natural to be an atheist. We're not made that way. Improvidence, however, can constitute a lack of responsibility. I'm sorry, I skipped. An idolater is someone who transfers his indestructible notion of God to anything other than God. Isn't that powerful, the Catholic Catechism? An idolater is someone who transfers his indestructible notion of God. So God, that's indestructible within us, to anything other than God. Divination and magic. God can reveal the future to his prophets or to other saints. Still, a sound Christian attitude consists in putting oneself confidently in the hands of God's providence for whatever concerns the future, and giving up all unhealthy curiosity about it. Improvidence, however, can constitute a lack of responsibility. So we want to seek God's will and try to discern God's will. Lord, where should I go? What should I do? But ultimately, we just move in trust. But if we're trying to pray and discern, pray and ask for God to tell us the future, we're probably, although that happens, it's in a very providential, unique way. If we're seeking for that to happen, especially like through astrology, divination, palm reading, Ouija boards, things like that, these seances, or this gentleman who gets on TV and says he's talking to your friends in heaven, that sort of stuff can lead, leads directly, is probably directly demonic. When people say, well, I went to a palm reader, or I went to someone who could get me in touch with my relatives or people like that, and they knew that my uncle had a red scarf and it was his favorite red scarf, and that my uncle wants to tell me, that I can have it. If that's true, if someone is saying to you, your uncle is trying to get in touch with you and he wants you to keep his red scarf, like that, you see that person on TV. If that's really true, and that's not some sort of finding out things like this from your background somehow, if that's really true, then that's a demon. Demons are able to, there is, we do live in a spiritual world. You do know that a third of the angels rebelled, right? You do know that. You do know that you have a guardian angel, but there's a demonic realm, and that we are in a spiritual battle, that we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And when you open yourself up through Ouija boards, through palm reading, through reading of astrology, seances, going places where people can supposedly get in touch through a seance with your relatives. If a palm reader tells you, this is what you should do, that I can read here that you should do this and this and this, and you buy into that, can't a demon go ahead of you and try to make that happen? Can't a demon who hates you and wants you to be diverted from God's plan manipulate and try to make situations happen that are consistent with what the palm readers said? Can't a demon know that your uncle had a red scarf? Come on, don't be foolish, of course. So not everything that seems spiritual is of God's Spirit. Remember when Paul and Silas were, or I believe it was Paul and Barnabas were preaching, and a woman followed them around. I think it was Paul and Silas. I forget who his partner was at that time on the missionary journey, and she kept following them, saying, "Follow these men; they know the way of salvation." She did that for several days. And that just sounds just so good, doesn't it? And someone would be that aware that Paul and Silas are, have the way. They show the true way. And then Paul turned and looked at her and cast the demon out of her, that demon of religiosity, as I said yesterday. So don't be foolish. If it smells like a rat, it's probably a rat. The gift of discernment is a gift of the Holy Spirit, and I always call it the gift of discernment is very much like a sense of smell. You're talking with someone, they're very, very religious, but you know something isn't right. It's probably maybe that it's a religious spirit, but it's a demon there. So don't get caught up in astrology. Don't get caught up in divination. Don't get caught up in Ouija boards. Don't get caught up in palm reading. If you've done any of those things, you really seriously need to go to confession and get that cleaned out. The exorcists that I know, and every Catholic diocese has at least one exorcist. I've spoken at conferences. One of my favorite ones I ever spoke at was with Mike Aquilina, and then also a man who trains for one of the diocese priests in exorcism. He said one of the greatest ways demons enter people is through the Ouija board. He also said something very interesting. He said that in America today, the exorcisms have gotten more difficult, and that it's almost like it used to be in some third world nations where the gospel has never been, where they're having to cast out demons from the religious practices that area had practiced for so many years, and so that it's getting harder. What's interesting is people who practice deliverance know that there are some demons that just won't leave unless a Catholic priest is involved. And one thing for sure is demons hate the Latin language, because it's the Latin is the language, of the universal church, the Catholic Church. And I don't like to focus on demons too much, but as being someone who's involved in evangelization, I've been that way since I was 19 when I first was infused with the baptism of the Holy Spirit. There's been many occasions where I've led people to the Lord and demons have manifested, where the demon will, I'll just be praying with them for their initial prayer to give their life to the Lord before they're baptized and things like that. And at that moment, demons will cry out. And demons will choke them, and you just have to take authority over them in the name of Jesus. It's kind of cool because the way it is, it's kind of like shows you in these light sort of deliverances where someone's being oppressed. I remember there was a whole group of musicians that came to the Lord, and they were, several of them had come to when I was doing a youth group long time ago, and I led them in this prayer, and one of them began to choke. They'd never seen this happen. They didn't know this could happen, and it's almost like a cattle prod, when you stick a cow, I guess, with a cattle prod, you go, like that. That's what would happen. And the Holy Spirit, when that person would start to give their life to the Lord, the Holy Spirit would be there. It was like a cattle prod. The demon would manifest, and then we'd see a beautiful deliverance. And so I'm just wanting you to know, don't play with fire. Demons are very real. They're not to be toyed with. I would really advise you to be cautious about what films you watch. I'm not a big fan of horror films, especially considering what today is. I wouldn't have witches and things like that in my house. I just it's not funny, it's not fun, it's very, very serious, the decor that you have up in your house. So I would really be careful with that, and make sure that tomorrow that you make sure you make your holy day of obligation and go to confession maybe today. So I'm just trying to say that on this particular day, I think it's interesting that we're talking about all these demonic practices, and I would just be very, love the Lord. Love the Lord. Keep your temple sacred. What you let into your eyes enters into your temple. What you let into your ears enters into your temple. Keep your heart and your eyes pure today. And anything that is smacks of divination or Ouija boards or astrology, palm reading, seances, anything like that, God, why would you even want that? Don't you want to go to the source and let the Lord lead you moment by moment? God doesn't say, hey, go there, this is going to happen when you go there, usually. And so if you go to a palm reader and they tell you that kind of stuff, it kind of diverts your path from the Lord, and it may very well be that a demon now starts accompanying you. So if you've exposed yourself to any of those things, I would go to a priest and I would go to confession today, and I would ask the Lord to forgive you and to focus on Him. So all forms of divination are to be rejected. Recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead, or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future, consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums all conceal a desire for power over time, history, and in the last analysis, other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden powers. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. All practices of magic or sorcery by which one attempts to tame occult powers so as to place them at one's service and have a supernatural power over others, even if this were for the sake of restoring their health, are gravely contrary to the virtue of religion. These practices are even more to be condemned when accompanied by the intention of harming someone, or when they have recourse to the intervention of demons. Wearing charms, this whole thing about wearing crystals, for example, or channeling that's become so popular. Wearing charms is also reprehensible. Spiritism often implies divination or magical practices. The Church, for her part, warns the faithful against it. Recourse to so-called traditional cures does not justify either the invocation of evil powers or the exploitation of another's credibility. I'll let you guys think about that for a moment. So on this particular day, if you're the head of your household, and you know there's an Ouija board in your household, or there's some sort of charms or anything else like that, get rid of them. Go to church and get holy water and bless your home. You should bless your home anyway. Do the sign of the cross on every single hallway. Sprinkle your home. Bless your children. And especially today, let your focus be on the Lord and spend time. Everyone maybe should say 3 rosaries today instead of 1. And let's be devoted to our loving God who sent his Son and infused us with the Holy Spirit, and pray God's protection and deliverance from the demonic. And remember, they're not attacking us; we're on the attack. Okay, we're on the attack by living the life of virtue. Okay, love you guys. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Bears Man Cave meetup Thursday night at 7:30. We have a new member, Bill Rushmore, who will be joining us. So, man, hope you can make every effort to have a friend with you, have a friend sitting right next to you during the Man Cave meetup, so we can challenge, encourage, and mobilize. Aloha.